Congressman Buddy Carter of Georgia asks that question all the time and has introduced the Daylight All Year Leads to Ideal Gains in Happiness and Temperament Act, or the Daylight Act, and I love it. Georgia Republican Congressman Buddy Carter joins us now. Before I get to the daylight savings time, which I will in a second, Joe Biden wasn't happy and temperamental Thursday night for his State of the Union speech. He had plenty to say about abortion, January 6th, and every other topic on the MSNBC bingo card. Watch this.
I'm a capitalist. If you want to make or can make a million or millions of bucks, that's great. Just pay your fair share in taxes. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
Congressman, anything you'd like to say to the president?
Well, you know, I wanted to stand up during his speech and say, okay, old man, I'm getting off of your line. Quit yelling at me. I mean, it was ridiculous. You know, that's all he did for an hour and a half was to yell at us. And then he ended it by saying, I'm going to be the president for all Americans, even USOBs that I don't like and agree with. I mean, it was ridiculous. And he missed the points. He missed the points that he should have been hitting on. He talked about the border. Well, he talked about the bill that supposedly the Republicans held up in the House. No, that was not a border bill. What that was an amnesty bill, an immigration bill. We have a border bill. It is H.R. 2, and it is in the Senate, and it needs to be acted upon. You know, he talked about the economy, and he talked about the fact that, oh, we brought inflation down from 7% to 3.7%. Let me remind you, Mr. President, that the inflation was at 1.4% when you took office, that the price of food and energy are still high. The price of food is high of a percentage of people's budget as it has been in decades. And then finally, the worst part in my mind, being a pharmacist and being a healthcare professional, was when he proposed expanding what I consider to be the worst legislation I've ever seen in Congress or in the state legislature that I served in. And that is to expand the prescription drug portion that the federal government is essentially telling companies they have to accept, from 10 drugs to 50 drugs per year, which is going to result in less research and development. That's the worst thing that he could have possibly said right there.
Yeah, people don't connect the dots there between cost and research and development and all that stuff. You're right. So before we go to bed tonight, we have to remember to change our clocks, right? Or we'll be an hour late for church. Most people I know really don't like this whole daylight saving thing. In fact, YouGov poll, I think it was last year, 62% of Americans want to eliminate changing our clocks twice a year. But here's the thing. If they had a preference, a majority picked keeping the longer daylight hours, but they want to have it both ways. They don't want to wake up in the dark. So what would your legislation do?
Well, what this legislation would do would make daylight savings time year-round. And look, people prefer it, yes, but there are other benefits as well. As a healthcare professional, again, you have to look at the benefits to people's health. I mean, it decreases accidents, it decreases heart attacks, it decreases depression, it increases physical activity, which, you know, addresses obesity in our country. And then you need to look at it economically as well. People are more productive. Our economy has a bump of 2 to 4% whenever we go to daylight savings time. So speaking from a health perspective, from an economy perspective, as well as from just the consistency, people don't want to have to change their clocks.
So the Senate passed bipartisan Sunshine Act a few years ago. It died in the House. Any chance that that could be revived? Or what do you think your legislation, the odds of passing this term, could be?
Well, I think that we've got a good opportunity here and a good chance of passing that legislation. And because I think, again, the public is demanding it. And if there's one thing we need to do a better job of in Congress, and that is following public's opinion on bills like these, where, you know, we tend to ignore what people think. I mean, we talk a lot about how we can increase how we can decrease obesity in this country. This is one of the ways that we can do it in an indirect way, and certainly this is a good way.
So the Uniform Time Act of 1966, wrongly named, because there's anything uniform about it, but it allows states to choose whether they want to participate in daylight saving time or not, and two don't right now, Hawaii and Arizona. Most of our territories, like Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, they don't either. Europe, they're kind of all over the place. So how do we get everything to be actually uniform and on the same page?
Well, that's why it needs to be done at a federal level. We need to make sure that we pass it at a federal level. And this is another example of where, look, I believe in state sovereignty. I served in the state legislature for 10 years. I have a healthy respect for that. But at the same time, this is one of those rare incidences, I would say, where I think federal legislation would be more beneficial to everyone concerned.
Well, I wish you luck, and I think most Americans do as well, because at some point it becomes nonsensical, and we've reached that point. It just doesn't make sense anymore. So if it doesn't make sense, I guess that's why we keep it in this country. Congressman Buddy Carter of Georgia, don't forget to put your clock ahead tonight, all right?
We will spring forward.